He is the longest tenured member of WWE's roster and signed a 5-year contract extension not too long ago, ensuring that Randy Orton, as beloved and respected as anyone in WWE's locker room these days, will remain a presence on our TV sets for some time to come. He may be a wizened veteran and all-round family man that is viewed as a locker room leader now, but in another era, Orton was a bit of a nightmare and made plenty of enemies on his way to the summit, while shades of the old Orton continue to emerge from time to time. I'm Adam Pachisi from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 WWE stars who had heat with Randy Orton. Join us. Number 10, Kurt Angle. As two of the Blue Brand's top stars, Randy Orton and Kurt Angle crossed paths with each other quite a bit in 2006. This included in the Triple Threat World Heavyweight Championship match at WrestleMania 22 and singles bouts at One Night Stand and Vengeance, as well as on SmackDown. The Legend Killer clearly learned a thing or two from the Olympic hero, and years after Kurt's exit, began adopting the Angle Slam as one of his signature moves. Following Randy's match with CM Punk at WrestleMania 27, Angle tweeted about Orton's usage of the move, writing, among other things, "Orton, relax, I won't beat your ass, you can use my move." While the WWE Hall of Famer would later clarify that he only meant his tweets in jest, Randy apparently didn't take them that way. As well as responding with, "Point being, instead of taking offense to somebody using your move, consider it a sign of respect," Orton supposedly held a grudge against Angle. They obviously patched things up and are good friends these days, with their wives Kim and Giovanna being actual BFFs who briefly hosted a Wives of Wrestlers podcast together. Episode 1, Why You Shouldn't Marry a Pro Wrestler. Number 9, Matt Riddle. Matt Riddle was a locker room heat magnet whose personality rubbed a lot of the top stars the wrong way, most notably Goldberg, Brock Lesnar, and Roman Reigns. That's the way, Matt, piss off the smaller, more mellow wrestlers, why don't you? Another politically unwise move was irking the Viper, which is exactly what the original Bro did while still stationed in NXT. As Orton told it on the Kurt Angle Show podcast, he was already annoyed by an already small locker room being taken up with the bags of NXT stars, even though the up-and-comers from Orlando were only on the road to observe, not actually wrestle on the shows. Then Randy tried to break the ice with the former UFC fighter with a, "Oh, there's the guy," but Riddle barely acknowledged the invitation to introduce himself to the 14-time world champ. From then on, Orton had a bad taste in his mouth for Riddle, but his stance softened when Matt made it to the main roster and the two shared more locker rooms together. After that, Randy claimed he loved Riddle, with the two going on to form the very successful RK Bro tag team. Number 8, Roman Reigns. These days, getting on the wrong side of the tribal chief would be a political death sentence, as Roman Reigns is pretty much untouchable. Back in the summer of 2013, however, he was still a star on the rise and didn't have close to the clout he does now. Still, that didn't stop the big dog from getting into it with the Viper. According to reports, Roman and Randy botched a spot during a tag match on a non-televised live event and then had a shouting match about it backstage. Since Orton was the 10-plus year veteran and Reigns the rookie, it was expected that the latter would not argue back. Interestingly, this created something of an internal power struggle of sorts, as Vince McMahon wanted the Shield punished in response, while Triple H wanted to make sure they were kept strong on TV. A year later, Randy was accused of trying to slow down Roman's big babyface push by working a crowd-killing style of match with Reigns on the road, which ironically put a bunch of heat on Orton. Regardless, they managed to work through their issues and had a very strong match at SummerSlam. Number 7, the Road Dogg. Not to get all Peter Kay about it or anything, but remember when the New Age Outlaws came back for another run in the early 2010s? What were all that about? As well as winning the WWE Tag Team titles, Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg also got to headline several shows on the company's 2013 WrestleMania Revenge Tour of Europe, tagging with Randy Orton against the Shield. As the DOGG has talked about on his podcast, it was during this tour that he began butting heads with Orton. The heat began when Randy was late for the bus that shuttled the stars from city to city. The roadie, a more tenured veteran, felt that if he was on time, then Orton should be too. They continued to clash over this and that, with the heat even spilling over to the ring itself, where it affected the execution of their matches. Road Dogg put the beef down to a clash of egos, noting that the Legend Killer wouldn't bend to him simply because he was an old-timer. There is obviously no lingering heat though, with the WWE Hall of Famer often showering the future Hall of Famer with very high praise indeed. Number 6, Kenny Dykstra. Like Randy Orton in his early WWE days, Kenny Dykstra was considered a promising young talent that had all the potential to be a very top guy. History has shown us that Kenny, whose greatest claim to fame might be that he was the leader of the Spirit Squad, did not go on to have the same illustrious career as the Legend Killer. Being outspoken about the affair between John Cena and his former fiancée Mickie James can't have helped Dykstra's plight, but neither did making an enemy out of Randy Orton. Speaking with Power Slam magazine in 2008, Randy recounted an incident that happened during a tour of Australia a couple of years prior, which concerned Kenny getting drunk and bothering him at a bar. Despite repeated warnings to cut it out, Dykstra seemingly didn't listen, and Orton responded by slapping him out cold. The Apex Predator added that he never liked Kenny, who he considered cocky and disrespectful. Pot kettle black much, Randy? And didn't know what he was doing at the time of the interview, and didn't care where he ended up. Dykstra is currently working as a coach at the WWE Performance Center, where he presumably teaches the how to avoid pissing off the main eventers class. Number 5, Rochelle Lowen. In Randy Orton's younger and more immature days, a lot of his wrath was directed at the female members of the locker room, in particular the women who were brought into the company in the early to mid-2000s. Diva Search contestant Amy Weber has spoken about how she was hazed by the Legend Killer, but Rochelle Lowen, a model that was recruited by John Laurinaitis, got it way worse. According to Lowen, Orton destroyed her belongings with self-tanning lotion and baby oil because Rochelle, who wasn't a fan of the business prior to signing with WWE, didn't know who he was. After that, Randy had it in for her, and per Lowen's account, told her that he hated her and did other undisclosed things that were, in her words, inappropriate and verbally abusive backstage. Rochelle, who branded Orton an animal and a psycho, claimed that the former World Heavyweight Champion was infatuated with her and became very jealous when she moved to SmackDown and began traveling with Randy's soon-to-be ex-best friend, Mark Jindrak. Both Lowen and Amy Weber quit WWE around the same time, with reports indicating their decision to do so was due to their treatment at the hands of a certain third-generation star. Number 4, Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston looked like he was about to boom drop his way through the glass ceiling toward the end of 2009, thanks to a program with Randy Orton that saw Kofi routinely get one over on WWE's Apex Predator. Highlights included Kingston putting Orton through a table in Madison Square Garden, eliminating Orton to win a Survivor Series tag match as the sole survivor, and a singles match between the two at TLC. But after wrestling Orton and John Cena in a triple threat match on the January 11th, 2010 episode of Raw, Kofi's push came to a screeching halt. The reason was because Kingston forgot to stay down for Randy's punt kick finisher and instead had to take an RKO. Fans would have been none the wiser had Orton not shouted "Stupid, stupid" at Kofi before making the cover. After this incident, rumors persisted that Randy's outburst and annoyance at Kingston cost Kofi a planned victory in the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 26. Kofi himself alluded to the supposed heat in a 2012 interview, saying he found the online talk funny while acknowledging that Orton had an attitude. This history of heat, of course, later played into their 2019 feud over Kingston's WWE title. Number 3, Bubba Ray Dudley. If one WWE star gets injured during a match, it's bad news. If 2 WWE stars get injured during a match, it's really bad news. 3 WWE stars getting injured during the same match? Almost unheard of, but it did happen when the Dudley Boys met Evolution's Batista and Randy Orton at a house show on March 1st, 2003. Somehow, the animal tore his triceps and the Viper broke his foot, with Bubba hurting his back by falling on Orton's foot. And, you know, breaking it. Big Dave has gone on record as saying how much he hates Bubba, who chewed out his injured opponents after the match, blaming them for how it all went down as they boarded an ambulance heading for the local medical facility. The heat lingered for a long time, with Bubba later detailing how he and Randy only buried the hatchet when the Dudleys made their WWE return in 2015. Bubba noted how they shook hands, hugged, and talked about their prior issues, putting it all down to a collective lack of maturity. They might have put the past behind them, but Orton still managed to get a pretty brutal dig in with this tweet after Bubba had left WWE once more. Number 2, The Rock. At WrestleMania 20, Randy Orton found himself standing across the ring from the Great One when Evolution took on and beat the Rock and Sock Connection in a 3-on-2 handicap match. That was Dwayne Johnson's last match for 8 years as he went off to conquer Hollywood. When The Rock came back to act as WrestleMania 27 host in 2011, 2011 and kickstart a feud with John Cena, Orton wasn't convinced he was back for the long haul. In an interview with ESPN.com, Randy blasted The Rock for appearing via satellite, claimed that The Rock didn't want to be associated with wrestling, and said that Cena was 10 times the performer that Dwayne was. This, naturally, didn't sit well with the most electrifying man in all of entertainment, who had a word with Vince McMahon, who had a word with talent relations chief John Laurinaitis, who had a word with Orton. The Viper later acknowledged that there was heat there, but it didn't really amount to much in the grand scheme of things. And hell, with Rock back in the fold once more, there's every chance we'll finally get to see a match between these two gorgeous muscle monsters. Number 1, Mr. Kennedy. Ken Kennedy, a charismatic WWE star once tipped to be a long-term main event player, didn't do himself any favors. He had committed several sins since debuting on the main roster, from frequent injury layoffs to becoming embroiled in a steroid scandal, but the straw that broke the camel's back was when he allegedly nearly broke Randy Orton's neck. Kennedy delivered a back suplex to Orton in the 10-man tag main event of the May 25th, 2009 episode of Raw, with Randy landing in a way he clearly didn't like, even if video evidence suggests that it wasn't the potential career ender that he originally thought it was. According to reports, the Viper openly complained about the unsafe Kennedy, who was wrestling his first match in 10 months, and refused to work with him. The former United States champion has also claimed that Orton lobbied Cena to complain to Vince McMahon about his work, which ultimately persuaded McMahon to get rid. Kennedy was bitter about the situation for a long time afterwards, but in recent years has come to accept that his firing didn't exactly come out of nowhere, and that he and Orton have since cleared the air.